In this video, I'm going to be telling you about the Simpsons Paradox. The Simpsons Paradox is a statistical phenomenon where an association between two variables in a population emerges, disappears, or reverses when the population is divided into subpopulations. Basically, this means that the Simpsons Paradox states that two variables may seem to be having one relationship based on one set of data, while also having a different relationship based on another set of data. Let's see an example. Now we're trying to find who is the better shooter in the 2022 to 2023 NBA season. Trae Young or Nikola Jokic? Now there's data we can look at to try to answer this question, like points per game. As we see, Trae Young averaged 26.2 points per game, while Nikola Jokic averaged 24.5 points per game. From this set of data, we can see that Trae Young may be the better shooter. Now there's other data we could state to see if Trae Young is truly the better shooter. We can look at percentages. We can look at percentages of three-pointers made per game. As we see, Nikola Jokic averaged 38.30% on three-pointers per game, percentage field goal. And Trae Young averaged 33.5%. Trae Young also had 6.3 attempts per game, while Nikola Jokic had 2.2 attempts per game. We can also see percentage of two-pointers made per game. They both attempted the same amount of two-pointers per game, 12.7, but Nikola Jokic shot 67.5% from two-pointer, while Trae Young averaged 47.6% from two-pointer. As you can see, Nikola Jokic has the higher field goal percentage than Trae Young. Another thing we can look at is free throw percentage per game. Now they both virtually shoot the same percentage from the free throw. Trae Young 88.6, while Nikola Jokic 88.2. But Trae Young does average 7.7 attempts per game compared to Nikola Jokic's 6.0 attempts per game. So through this data, we can notice that Trae Young may have a higher points per game, but he also takes more attempts per game, and he has a lower percentage of those attempts that actually go in. Now what we could do is see how much Nikola Jokic would average points per game with the same attempts as Trae Young. So we can take Trae Young's attempts from 3, 2, and from the free throw, multiply it with the field goal percentage of Nikola Jokic and free throw percentage, and then multiply the amount of points that were applied for each shot made. We can see that Nikola Jokic's new points per game average would be 31.18. Now on this graph, you can see points per game when they are both shooting the same shot attempts. Theoretically, Nikola Jokic would average 31.18 points per game if he had the same amount of attempts as Trae Young. Now let's go back to the original question. Who is the better shooter? Is it Trae Young or Nikola Jokic? Well, if you're going by the points per game graph, you would say Trae Young, because he's averaging more points per game than Nikola Jokic. But if you look at the second graph, points per game with equal shot attempts, you would say Nikola Jokic, because he has a way higher points per game when shooting the same amount of attempts as Trae Young. Now this is a perfect example of the Simpsons Paradox. One graph is true, the second graph is true as well, but they both tell drastically different stories.